In the ancient world, where the stars were more than just distant lights in the sky and the wind carried whispers of the divine, people believed in forces that shaped their lives in ways they could barely comprehend. Magic was not just an abstract concept, it was woven into the very fabric of their existence. It wasn't something separate from life, it was life itself, mysterious, powerful, and at times, terrifying. In Mesopotamia, one of the world's oldest civilizations, magic was a force that could bless or curse, heal or harm. The people of Mesopotamia lived in a land between two great rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. Here, life was unpredictable, governed by the whims of the gods. Floods, droughts, and plagues could strike without warning. The people knew they needed something more than just hard work and prayers. They needed to understand and control the supernatural forces that ruled their world. The earliest records from Mesopotamia speak of witchcraft with a mixture of awe and fear. Witches were believed to have the power to communicate with gods and spirits, to cast spells, and to summon forces that could change the course of events. The ancient tablets, written in cuneiform script, described rituals that were meant to protect people from these witches or to call upon them for help. These rituals were not mere superstition, they were a way to cope with the overwhelming forces of nature and fate. In the heart of this civilization, the city of Babylon stood as a symbol of human achievement and divine power. Yet, even in this great city, the fear of witches was ever present. The people believed that witches could bring sickness, madness, and death. They could turn friends into enemies, make crops wither, and even change the weather. The thought of such power in the hands of a few was both thrilling and terrifying. In the temples of Babylon, priests and priestesses practiced their own form of magic, trying to harness the power of the gods for the good of the people. But outside these temples, in the dark alleys and hidden corners of the city, other forms of magic were practiced. These were the domains of witches, who were said to meet in secret, performing rituals that the common people could barely imagine. The line between good and evil was often blurred, and what one person saw as a healing spell, another might see as a curse. Traveling westward to ancient Egypt, the air seemed to hum with magic. The Nile River, with its life-giving waters, was seen as a gift from the gods, but it was also a reminder of the unpredictable nature of the world. Here, magic was deeply integrated into religion and daily life. The Egyptians believed that their pharaohs were living gods, capable of wielding great magic. But magic was not just for the divine, it was for everyone. In the daily life of an Egyptian, magic was a tool for survival. Amulets were worn to ward off evil spirits, and spells were recited to ensure safe passage to the afterlife. The Book of the Dead, a collection of spells and prayers, was a guide for the soul's journey after death, protecting it from demons and guiding it to the afterlife. The Egyptians believed that words themselves held power, the power to create or destroy, to heal or curse. Witches in ancient Egypt were both feared and respected. There were often women who knew the secrets of herbs and potions, who could heal the sick or bring justice to those who had been wronged. But they were also believed to have the power to curse, to summon dark forces that could wreak havoc. The Egyptians lived in a world where the line between the natural and the supernatural was thin, where a simple illness could be seen as the work of a witch, and where the right spell could mean the difference between life and death. In the tombs of the pharaohs, among the treasures and the traps meant to protect them in the afterlife, were spells and curses meant to keep their spirits safe from those who might wish them harm. These were not just relics of a bygone era, they were a testament to the enduring belief in the power of magic. The thought that even in death, one could be vulnerable to the power of a witch, was a source of both fear and fascination. In other ancient civilizations, the belief in witchcraft was just as strong. In the forests of ancient Europe, where the Celts and other tribes lived, witches were seen as the keepers of ancient knowledge. They were the healers, the midwives, the ones who could speak to the spirits of the land. But they were also the ones who could call upon the darker forces, who could curse a warrior so that his sword would turn to rust in his hand, or who could summon a storm to destroy a village. The ancient Greeks, too, had their witches, women like Circe and Medea, who could bend reality to their will. These women were often portrayed as both beautiful and deadly, their power as alluring as it was dangerous. The Greeks, with their love of stories and myths, wove tales of these witches that have survived to this day. These stories were not just entertainment, they were a reflection of the fears and desires that lurked in the hearts of the people. In these ancient times, magic was not just a belief, it was a reality. The people of these civilizations lived in a world where the supernatural was always present, where the gods could be both kind and cruel, and where a witch could change your fate with a single word or gesture. It was a world where every shadow held a secret, every whisper carried a spell, and every stranger could be more than they seemed. This belief in the power of witches and magic was not just a product of ignorance or fear, it was a way for people to make sense of a world that was often chaotic and cruel. In a time before science, when the night was filled with unknown dangers and the future was uncertain, magic was a way to grasp at some control over the uncontrollable. Witches, with their knowledge of the hidden forces of the world, were both revered and reviled, their power both sought after and feared. And so, in these ancient civilizations, the witch became a symbol of both the best and the worst of humanity, a figure who could heal or harm, protect or destroy, bring hope or despair. The stories of these witches, passed down through generations, have left an indelible mark on the history of the world, a testament to the enduring power of magic and the human need to believe in something greater than themselves. Circe, the name alone stirs something ancient and wild deep within us. She wasn't just another figure in the endless tapestry of Greek mythology, she was something more, something that defied easy understanding. There's a haunting beauty in her story, a tale of power and loneliness, of love and fear, that echoes through the ages. Born to the sun god Helios and the ocean nymph Circe, Circe was destined to be extraordinary. Yet, from the very beginning, she was different. In a family of gods and titans, where strength and beauty were everything, Circe stood apart. Her voice was not the melodious song of her mother's kind, nor did she possess the fiery splendor of her father. She was quiet, observant, and, most dangerously, curious. Circe's life took shape on the remote island of Aeaea, a place far from the eyes of gods and men. There, in her solitude, she discovered her gift, her curse, the power of transformation. With her knowledge of herbs and potions, she could turn men into beasts, bend nature to her will, and change the very essence of life itself. But this power came with a price. Circe was feared and shunned, misunderstood even by her own kind. The gods, who prided themselves on their might, saw her magic as a threat, a power that was wild, unpredictable, and far beyond their control. In Homer's Odyssey, Circe's tale unfolds with all the intensity of a stormy sea. Odysseus, weary from his long journey, lands on her shores. His men, curious and hungry, are lured into her home by the promise of food and comfort. But as they eat and drink, Circe's magic takes hold. She waves her hand, speaks a word, and they are no longer men, they are swine, grunting and rooting in the dirt. Odysseus, however, is different. Armed with a protective herb given by the god Hermes, he confronts Circe. She, for the first time, meets someone who does not fall prey to her power, someone who sees through her spells. In that moment, something shifts. Circe is not just an enchantress anymore, she is a woman who has been alone for far too long, who has known nothing but the company of animals and the echo of her own thoughts. The meeting between Circe and Odysseus is charged with tension and unspoken emotion. Here is a woman who has turned countless men into beasts, and yet, she is the one who feels most like an outcast. Odysseus, with his cleverness and charm, sees this in her. He sees the loneliness that her power has brought, the pain that comes with being different, with being feared. And so, instead of fighting, they come to an understanding. Circe becomes Odysseus's lover, his ally, even his refuge. For a year, he and his men live on her island, free from the dangers of the world outside. But even in this idyll, there is an underlying sadness. Circe knows that this happiness is temporary, that Odysseus will leave, as all do. She cannot hold on to him, nor can she escape her fate as a sorceress, forever apart from the world of men and gods. Circe's story doesn't end with Odysseus's departure. Her life continues, marked by moments of both profound sorrow and fierce independence. She is a mother, bearing a son, Telegonus, who will one day seek out his father, Odysseus, with tragic consequences. Yet, even in this, Circe remains steadfast, a figure of immense strength who carves out a life on her own terms, no matter the cost. In Greek mythology, Circe symbolizes the power and danger of the unknown. She is the wild, untamed force that exists outside the boundaries of society, a reminder that there are things in this world that cannot be easily categorized or controlled. But she is also a figure of profound humanity, a woman who, despite her power, longs for connection, for understanding, for love. Circe is often seen as a villain, the wicked witch who lures men to their doom. But beneath this surface lies a deeper truth. She is a creature of contradictions, powerful yet vulnerable, feared yet lonely. Her magic, so often seen as a weapon, is also her defense, her way of coping with a world that has never accepted her. And yet, despite all this, Circe remains unapologetically herself. She does not seek approval or pity, she simply is. Her story is not just one of magic and myth, it is a story of survival, of carving out a place in a world that has always been hostile. Circe's tale resonates because it is timeless, a story of the outsider, the misunderstood, the one who is both feared and forgotten. In the end, Circe's power is not just in her spells or her potions. It is in her ability to endure, to stand alone on her island, facing the world with a strength that comes not from being invincible, but from embracing her own vulnerabilities. Circe, the enchantress of Greek mythology, is more than just a figure from an ancient story. She is a symbol of resilience, of the fierce independence that comes from knowing oneself, flaws and all. She is a reminder that true power lies not in the ability to control others, but in the courage to be true to oneself, no matter how the world might see you. And in that, Circe's story touches something deep within us all, something that lingers long after the tale is told. In the quiet hours of the night, when the world is hushed and the moon casts its silver light over the land, there is a presence that lingers just beyond the edge of sight. She is Hecate, the goddess who walks the crossroads, the one who stands at the boundary between light and darkness, life and death. Her name is spoken in whispers, for she is both feared and revered, a figure of immense power and mystery. Hecate wasn't always a goddess of such prominence. In the earliest days, she was a minor deity, a figure who moved in the shadows, unnoticed by many. But there was something about her, something that set her apart from the other gods and goddesses. She was a goddess of the moon, a being who understood the power of the night, who knew that the darkness was not just a place of fear, but a place of power, of magic. Hecate's connection to the moon was profound. The moon, with its ever-changing phases, was a symbol of the cycles of life and death, of the constant ebb and flow of the universe. Hecate was the keeper of these cycles, the one who knew the secrets of the moon's power. She was often depicted holding two torches, guiding those who were lost in the darkness, showing them the way forward. But her light was not the warm, comforting light of the sun, it was the cold, clear light of truth, of facing one's deepest fears and desires. But Hecate was not just a goddess of the moon. She was also deeply connected to the underworld, the realm of the dead. It was said that she could walk between worlds, moving freely from the land of the living to the land of the dead. She was the one who guided souls to the afterlife, who stood at the crossroads where the paths to different fates converged. Hecate was not just a guardian of the dead, she was the one who understood death, who knew that it was not an end, but a transformation, a passage to something beyond. As time passed, Hecate's power grew. She became more than just a goddess of the moon and the underworld, she became the goddess of witchcraft, the patron of those who sought to harness the power of the night, of magic. Witches called upon Hecate for protection, for guidance, for the power to cast their spells. She was the one who taught them the secrets of the herbs, the chants, the rituals that could bend the world to their will. But Hecate's magic was not the bright, flashy magic of the other gods. It was subtle, hidden, and often misunderstood. It was the magic of the earth, of the roots that grew in the dark soil, of the shadows that danced in the moonlight. It was a magic that required patience, wisdom, and a deep understanding of the forces that moved beneath the surface of the world. Hecate's evolution from a minor deity to the patron goddess of witches was not just a change in status, it was a reflection of the changing world, of the shifting balance between light and darkness, between the known and the unknown. In a world where the gods of light and order held sway, Hecate represented something different. She was the goddess of the in-between, of the spaces that were neither one thing nor the other, but both. She was the goddess of mystery, of the things that could not be easily explained or controlled. For those who followed her, Hecate was not just a goddess, she was a guide, a protector, a source of power. She was the one who stood with them in the darkest hours of the night, when the world seemed cold and uncaring, when the forces of fate seemed to conspire against them. She was the one who showed them that there was strength in the darkness, that the night was not something to be feared, but something to be embraced, understood, and harnessed. In the rituals dedicated to Hecate, there was always a sense of reverence, of awe. The witches who called upon her did so with a deep understanding of what she represented, a power that was both ancient and eternal, a force that could not be easily controlled or contained. They knew that to invoke Hecate was to step into the unknown, to walk the path that led between worlds, to confront the deepest parts of themselves. Hecate's presence was often felt in the stillness of the night, in the quiet moments when the world seemed to hold its breath. She was there in the rustling of the leaves, in the flicker of the candle's flame, in the shadows that danced at the edge of sight. She was the one who reminded them that the darkness was not empty, but full of possibilities, of secrets waiting to be discovered. For those who sought her, Hecate was more than just a goddess, she was a beacon, a light in the darkness, a reminder that even in the darkest times, there was hope, there was power, there was magic. She was the one who stood with them at the crossroads, who helped them choose their path, who gave them the strength to walk it, no matter how difficult it might be. And so, Hecate's story is not just one of power and magic, it is a story of survival, of finding strength in the face of fear, of embracing the unknown and making it your own. It is a story that resonates with all who have ever stood at a crossroads, uncertain of which way to go, but knowing that they must choose, that they must move forward, that they must find their own way through the darkness. In the heart of ancient Greece, where gods walked among men and the line between love and madness blurred, there was Medea. Her name carries a weight of sorrow, anger, and vengeance that has echoed through the ages. She was no ordinary woman, she was a sorceress, a princess, and a figure who defies simple categorization. Her story is one of love that turned to poison, of trust shattered, and of a vengeance so fierce it burns through the pages of history. Medea's tale begins with love, but not the kind that brings warmth and light. It was a love born of desperation, of a young woman who gave everything she had to a man who promised her the world. Medea was the daughter of King Aedes of Colchis, a land at the edge of the known world, where the golden fleece lay guarded by a dragon. When Jason, the leader of the Argonauts, came seeking the fleece, it was Medea who made his success possible. Struck by a passion that seemed to consume her, she betrayed her father, her family, and her homeland for him. She used her magic to help Jason, to ensure his victory, and in return, he swore to love her forever. But forever is a fragile thing. The love that Medea and Jason shared was tainted from the start, built on betrayal and blood. They fled Colchis together, and as they sailed away, Medea's heart was torn. She had killed her own brother to aid Jason's escape, scattering his body parts into the sea to delay her father's pursuit. This act, horrifying and desperate, was a testament to the lengths Medea would go for love. Yet, it also marked the beginning of her descent, the moment when love and madness intertwined. They settled in Corinth, and for a time, it seemed they might find peace. But Jason, ever ambitious, sought more. He abandoned Medea to marry Glauce, the daughter of the king of Corinth, seeking power and position. For Medea, this was the ultimate betrayal. The man she had sacrificed everything for, who had promised her the world, had cast her aside as if she were nothing. The pain of this betrayal festered within her, growing into a rage that would not be quelled. Medea's revenge was as brutal as it was calculated. She sent Glauce a wedding gift, a beautiful robe soaked in poison. When Glauce put it on, the poison ignited, consuming her in flames. The king, in his attempt to save his daughter, also perished. But even this was not enough for Medea. The grief and fury that had taken root in her heart demanded a greater sacrifice. She turned her wrath upon her own children, the sons she had borne with Jason. In a moment that has haunted every retelling of her story, Medea killed her own children, leaving Jason with nothing but ashes and grief. This act, this unspeakable horror, has made Medea one of the most complex figures in mythology. She is both victim and villain, a woman driven to the edge by love and betrayal, and yet one who committed acts so dark that they defy understanding. Her story forces us to confront the darkest parts of the human soul, to ask ourselves how far we would go for love, and what we might become when that love is betrayed. Medea's influence extends far beyond the pages of Greek mythology. She has become a symbol, a cautionary tale, and a figure who has been reinterpreted countless times in literature, theater, and film. In modern depictions, Medea is often portrayed as a tragic heroine, a woman who was pushed to the brink by forces beyond her control. Her magic, her power, is seen not just as the source of her strength, but also as the source of her downfall. She is a witch in the truest sense, one who possesses the power to change the world around her, but who is ultimately consumed by the very forces she commands. The image of Medea has shaped our understanding of witchcraft in profound ways. She represents the dual nature of magic, the ability to create and to destroy, to heal and to harm. Her story reminds us that power, especially the power that comes from magic, is never without consequence. It is a double-edged sword that can protect or destroy, depending on the hand that wields it. But Medea is more than just a symbol of the dangers of power. She is also a reminder of the human capacity for both love and hatred, for kindness and cruelty. Her story is a reflection of the extremes of human emotion, of the ways in which love can turn to obsession, and how betrayal can lead to unimaginable acts of revenge. In the end, Medea's story is not just about a sorceress who committed terrible deeds. It is about the human heart, about the pain of love lost, the agony of betrayal, and the lengths to which someone might go to reclaim what was taken from them. It is a story that resonates with anyone who has ever felt the sting of betrayal, the sharp edge of love turned sour. Medea's name is one that will never be forgotten. She is the sorceress of betrayal and revenge, a figure who embodies the darkest aspects of the human experience. And yet, despite everything, there is a part of her story that remains deeply, painfully human. She loved, she lost, and in her grief, she did the unthinkable. In Medea, we see not just a witch, but a woman whose story, no matter how dark, continues to captivate, to terrify, and to move us. In the misty valleys and ancient forests of Britain, where legends of knights and kings were born, there lived a woman whose name carried with it both reverence and fear. Morgan Le Fay, the sister of King Arthur, was more than just a figure in a story. She was a force of nature, a woman of power in a world where power was jealously guarded by men. Her tale is one of transformation, of a healer who became a sorceress, of a woman who defied the expectations of her time and carved out her place in history, no matter the cost. Morgan Le Fay wasn't always the formidable witch that she came to be. In the early days of Arthurian legend, she was a healer, a woman skilled in the arts of medicine and magic. Her knowledge was vast, her abilities unmatched, and she used them to care for those in need. In a world fraught with conflict and bloodshed, Morgan's hands brought relief, her presence a balm to the weary and the wounded. But the same hands that healed could also destroy, and it was this duality that would come to define her. As the legends evolved, so did Morgan. No longer just a healer, she became a sorceress, her powers growing with each telling of the tale. She was no longer content to stand in the shadows, to quietly mend the broken. The fire within her, stoked by the injustices she witnessed, began to burn brighter. In a court where male knights and kings ruled, where women were often pawns in games of power, Morgan refused to be a silent player. She would not be controlled, would not be confined by the narrow roles that society dictated for her. The transformation of Morgan Le Fay from healer to sorceress was not just a shift in her character, but a rebellion against the world around her. She saw the way power was wielded, how men like Arthur and his knights shaped the fate of the land, and she knew that she too had power that could change the course of history. But with power came danger, and Morgan's path was fraught with peril. Those who feared her began to whisper her name with dread, turning her from a figure of healing to one of darkness and malevolence. But Morgan was not simply a villain. She was a complex figure, a woman who understood that power in the hands of men could be just as dangerous as power in the hands of a woman. She challenged the male-dominated structures of her time, not just with her magic, but with her very existence. She was a queen in her own right, a ruler who did not need a throne to command respect. Her presence in the court was a reminder that power could take many forms, that a woman could be as strong, as cunning, and as dangerous as any man. Morgan's story is woven with threads of both light and darkness. She was a sister, a mother, a lover, but also a rival, a conspirator, a witch. Her actions, whether driven by love, jealousy, or a desire for justice, were never simple, never easy to define. She used her magic to manipulate, to deceive, to fight against those who sought to control her. But she also used it to protect, to heal, to avenge those who had been wronged. The same power that made her feared also made her respected, even by those who opposed her. In many ways, Morgan Le Fay's tale is a reflection of the struggles faced by women throughout history. She was a woman who sought to control her own destiny in a world that sought to control her. She was judged, often harshly, for the choices she made, for the ways in which she wielded her power. But she did not shrink from these judgments. She embraced her role as a powerful woman, even when that meant embracing the darkness within her. Her story is not just one of magic and sorcery, it is a story of resistance, of a woman who refused to be silenced, who refused to be overshadowed by the men around her. She was a queen without a crown, a ruler of her own making, and in this, she became a symbol of defiance. For every time she was portrayed as a villain, there was also a whisper of admiration, a recognition of the strength it took to stand alone, to challenge the very foundations of the world she lived in. Morgan Le Fay's legacy is one of complexity and contradiction. She is a figure who embodies both the light and the dark, who can be seen as both hero and villain, depending on the perspective. Her transformation from healer to sorceress was not just a change in her abilities, but a change in her soul, a journey that took her from the gentle arts of healing to the raw, untamed power of magic. In the end, Morgan Le Fay remains one of the most powerful figures in Arthurian legend. She is the Witch Queen, the woman who stood against the might of Camelot, who dared to wield power in a world that sought to keep it from her. Her story is one of strength, of resilience, and of the enduring power of a woman who refused to be anything less than what she was, a force to be reckoned with, a name that would never be forgotten. In the stillness of night, when shadows stretched long and fears whispered through the dark, there was a woman who carried the weight of forbidden knowledge. Her name was never given, but she is known as the Witch of Endor, a figure from the Old Testament whose story is one of mystery, power, and the desperate plea of a fallen king. It was a time of silence from God. King Saul, once chosen by the divine, now found himself abandoned, his prayers unanswered, his heart heavy with dread. The Philistines were gathering, their armies pressing in on Israel, and Saul, lost in his fear, sought guidance from the very source he had once condemned. He had outlawed witchcraft in the land, driving out those who practiced it, but now, in the face of his own ruin, he turned to the shadows he had banished. Saul disguised himself and traveled under the cover of night to Endor, a place shrouded in secrecy and darkness. There, he sought the woman who could speak to the dead, the one who held the key to the mysteries of the beyond. When he found her, she was wary, knowing the dangers of her craft in a land where it was forbidden. But Saul, desperate and tormented, swore to protect her if she would only summon the spirit of Samuel, the prophet who had once been his guide. The Witch of Endor, with her voice calm and her hand steady, began the ritual. The air around them thickened with an otherworldly presence, and the ground seemed to tremble as she called out to the unseen. In that moment, the veil between the living and the dead was lifted, and the spirit of Samuel appeared, rising from the earth, his form pale and ghostly in the flickering light. Samuel's words were not those of comfort. He spoke of doom, of a fate sealed by Saul's own disobedience. The kingdom would fall, and Saul, along with his sons, would perish in the coming battle. The truth, stark and unyielding, fell like a hammer upon Saul's soul. The king, once mighty and chosen, crumbled in the face of this prophecy, his hope extinguished like a dying flame. The Witch of Endor, though she had done what was asked of her, watched as Saul left her dwelling, broken and despairing. Her role in this tale is brief, yet it is one that has lingered for centuries, shaping the way witches have been viewed in the Abrahamic religions. She was not depicted as malevolent or wicked, but as a woman who held a power that was both feared and sought after, a power that could breach the divide between life and death. This story, told and retold, has cast a long shadow over the image of witches in the religious consciousness. It spoke to the fear of the unknown, the fear of those who could wield forces beyond the understanding of the ordinary. The Witch of Endor became a symbol, not just of witchcraft, but of the tension between faith and fear, between the divine and the arcane. Her actions, though not malicious, were seen as a transgression, a stepping into realms that were meant to remain untouched. In the minds of many, she embodied the dangers of seeking knowledge that was not meant for human hands, of turning to dark arts when the light seemed to fade. The Witch of Endor's tale served as a warning, a reminder of the consequences of straying from the path of faith. It painted witches as those who trafficked in forbidden power, who could bend the natural order to their will, often at great cost. Yet, despite the fear and condemnation, there is something undeniably human in her story. She was a woman caught between the demands of a desperate king and the laws that condemned her craft. She wielded her power not with malice, but with a sense of duty to the task she was asked to perform. In her, there is a reflection of the age-old struggle between survival and morality, between the need to help and the fear of the consequences. The Witch of Endor, in her brief moment in the scriptures, became a figure of lasting significance. Her story has been used to justify the persecution of those accused of witchcraft, to paint them as dangerous and heretical. But it also serves as a poignant reminder of the complexities of human nature, of the ways in which fear and desperation can drive even the most powerful to seek answers in the darkest of places. Her presence in the Old Testament is a testament to the enduring power of myth and legend, to the way stories can shape the beliefs and fears of entire cultures. The Witch of Endor stands as a figure both feared and pitied, a woman whose actions have been interpreted in countless ways, yet whose humanity shines through the ages, reminding us of the thin line between faith and fear, between light and darkness. In the ancient, windswept lands of Ireland, where the hills seemed to whisper the secrets of old, there was a presence that haunted the battlefield, a figure both feared and revered. She was the Morrigan, a goddess whose very name brought shivers to the spine of warriors. The crows that circled above, their cries echoing through the valleys, were said to be her messengers, heralds of fate and death. She was not just a goddess of war, she was war itself, a force of nature that decided the fate of men with a glance, a breath, a whisper. The Morrigan was no ordinary deity. She could change her shape at will, shifting from a beautiful maiden to a fearsome hag, from a woman to a crow, her form as fluid as the mist that clung to the hills. This power of transformation was not just a trick, but a reflection of her nature. She was the embodiment of the chaos and unpredictability of war, a goddess who could be both protector and destroyer, depending on her mood and the whims of fate. In her, the line between life and death, between the mortal and the divine, blurred until it was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. Her presence on the battlefield was a sign of doom, a harbinger of the bloodshed to come. The warriors who saw her knew that their fates were sealed, that death was near. But the Morrigan was not just a bringer of death, she was also a goddess of fate, a weaver of the threads of destiny. She could grant victory or ensure defeat, her will shaping the outcome of battles long before the first sword was drawn. To see her was to know that the forces of the world were beyond human control, that the gods played their games with the lives of men as pawns on a chessboard. Yet, the Morrigan was not just a figure of fear. She was also a goddess of sovereignty, a symbol of the land itself. In some tales, she appeared as a beautiful woman offering her love to the hero, a test of his worthiness to rule. Those who accepted her were granted kingship and prosperity, while those who rejected her faced ruin. In this, the Morrigan was more than just a goddess of war, she was the very embodiment of the land's power, the force that gave and took away, depending on the courage and honor of those who sought her favor. Her connection to witchcraft and the supernatural was deep and unyielding. The Morrigan was often associated with prophecy, her visions revealing the future in all its terrible glory. She could see the threads of fate as they wove together, and her words were not to be taken lightly. Those who ignored her warnings did so at their peril, for the Morrigan's prophecies were as inescapable as death itself. Her magic was not the gentle, healing magic of other deities, but a wild, untamed force that reflected the chaos and destruction of war. She was a witch in the truest sense, a woman of power who could command the forces of nature and the supernatural alike. But the Morrigan was not a goddess to be pitied or feared alone. She was a complex figure, a deity who embodied both the terror and the beauty of life's most primal forces. Her connection to death was not just about the end of life, but about the cycle of renewal, the constant ebb and flow of existence. In her, the Celts saw the power of the natural world, the way life could be taken in an instant, only to give way to new growth. The Morrigan was a reminder that death was not the end, but a necessary part of the cycle, a force that cleared the way for new beginnings. Her influence on Celtic mythology was profound, shaping the way the Celts understood the world and their place in it. The Morrigan was not just a goddess to be worshipped, but a force to be reckoned with, a presence that could not be ignored. Her stories were told and retold, her image carved into the minds of those who heard them. She was the dark side of the divine, the goddess who reminded the Celts that the world was not just a place of light and joy, but also of darkness and sorrow. Yet, even in her darkest moments, the Morrigan was a goddess of incredible strength and power. She was a figure of resilience, a goddess who stood unflinching in the face of death and destruction. In her, the Celts saw the power of the feminine, a force that could be as nurturing as it was deadly. The Morrigan was not just a goddess of war, but a symbol of the strength and power of women, a reminder that the feminine was not to be underestimated or dismissed. The Morrigan's connection to the supernatural was not just about her power, but about her place in the world. She was a bridge between the mortal and the divine, a figure who moved between the worlds with ease. Her ability to shapeshift, to take on the form of animals and spirits, was a reflection of her connection to the natural world, a reminder that the divine was not separate from the world, but a part of it. The Morrigan was a goddess who could not be confined by human understanding, a force that was as wild and untamed as the land she ruled. The Morrigan, with her crow's cry and her blood-stained hands, remains one of the most powerful figures in Celtic mythology. She is a goddess who embodies the raw, untamed forces of life and death, a figure of both terror and awe. Her presence is a reminder that the world is not just a place of light, but also of darkness, a place where the forces of nature and the supernatural are always at play. In the Morrigan, the Celts saw the power of the feminine, the strength of the land, and the inevitability of fate. She is a goddess who will not be forgotten, her name echoing through the ages, a symbol of the enduring power of the natural world and the mysteries it holds. In the cold, rugged lands of the Norse, where the wind howled like a ravenous beast and the earth trembled beneath the weight of snow, there was a goddess whose beauty could stop hearts and whose power could bend the very fabric of fate. Freyja, the golden-haired goddess of love and war, held a place in the hearts of the Vikings that was as complex as it was profound. But it was not just her beauty or her connection to love that made her revered, it was her mastery of siege, the ancient and mysterious magic that could change the course of destiny. Freyja was not just a goddess, she was a force, a living embodiment of the power that pulsed beneath the surface of the world. Siege, the magic she wielded, was not like any other. It was a craft that intertwined the threads of fate, allowing those who mastered it to see into the future, to alter the present, and to weave their desires into the very fabric of reality. Freyja was its greatest mistress, her knowledge of siege unparalleled, her power over it absolute. In Viking culture, magic was not a mere trick or illusion. It was a powerful and sacred force, a connection to the divine and the natural world that could bring both blessings and curses. Siege was the highest form of this magic, a practice that required not just skill, but a deep understanding of the forces that shaped the world. Freyja's mastery of siege made her both feared and revered, a goddess who could bring victory in battle, love in times of loneliness, and prosperity in times of need. The Morrigan was no ordinary deity. She could change her shape at will, shifting from a beautiful maiden to a fearsome hag, from a woman to a crow, her form as fluid as the mist that clung to the hills. This power of transformation was not just a trick, but a reflection of her nature. She was the embodiment of the chaos and unpredictability of war, a goddess who could be both protector and destroyer, depending on her mood and the whims of fate. In her, the line between life and death, between the mortal and the divine, blurred until it was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. Her presence on the battlefield was a sign of doom, a harbinger of the bloodshed to come. The warriors who saw her knew that their fates were sealed, that death was near. But the Morrigan was not just a bringer of death, she was also a goddess of fate, a weaver of the threads of destiny. She could grant victory or ensure defeat, her will shaping the outcome of battles long before the first sword was drawn. To see her was to know that the forces of the world were beyond human control, that the gods played their games with the lives of men as pawns on a chessboard. Yet, the Morrigan was not just a figure of fear. She was also a goddess of sovereignty, a symbol of the land itself. In some tales, she appeared as a beautiful woman offering her love to the hero, a test of his worthiness to rule. Those who accepted her were granted kingship and prosperity, while those who rejected her faced ruin. In this, the Morrigan was more than just a goddess of war, she was the very embodiment of the land's power, the force that gave and took away, depending on the courage and honor of those who sought her favor. Her connection to witchcraft and the supernatural was deep and unyielding. The Morrigan was often associated with prophecy, her visions revealing the future in all its terrible glory. She could see the threads of fate as they wove together, and her words were not to be taken lightly. Those who ignored her warnings did so at their peril, for the Morrigan's prophecies were as inescapable as death itself. Her magic was not the gentle, healing magic of other deities, but a wild, untamed force that reflected the chaos and destruction of war. She was a witch in the truest sense, a woman of power who could command the forces of nature and the supernatural alike. But the Morrigan was not a goddess to be pitied or feared alone. She was a complex figure, a deity who embodied both the terror and the beauty of life's most primal forces. Her connection to death was not just about the end of life, but about the cycle of renewal, the constant ebb and flow of existence. In her, the Celts saw the power of the natural world, the way life could be taken in an instant, only to give way to new growth. The Morrigan was a reminder that death was not the end, but a necessary part of the cycle, a force that cleared the way for new beginnings. Her influence on Celtic mythology was profound, shaping the way the Celts understood the world and their place in it. The Morrigan was not just a goddess to be worshipped, but a force to be reckoned with, a presence that could not be ignored. Her stories were told and retold, her image carved into the minds of those who heard them. She was the dark side of the divine, the goddess who reminded the Celts that the world was not just a place of light and joy, but also of darkness and sorrow. Yet, even in her darkest moments, the Morrigan was a goddess of incredible strength and power. She was a figure of resilience, a goddess who stood unflinching in the face of death and destruction. In her, the Celts saw the power of the feminine, a force that could be as nurturing as it was deadly. The Morrigan was not just a goddess of war, but a symbol of the strength and power of women, a reminder that the feminine was not to be underestimated or dismissed. The Morrigan's connection to the supernatural was not just about her power, but about her place in the world. She was a bridge between the mortal and the divine, a figure who moved between the worlds with ease. Her ability to shapeshift, to take on the form of animals and spirits, was a reflection of her connection to the natural world, a reminder that the divine was not separate from the world, but a part of it. The Morrigan was a goddess who could not be confined by human understanding, a force that was as wild and untamed as the land she ruled. The Morrigan, with her crow's cry and her blood-stained hands, remains one of the most powerful figures in Celtic mythology. She is a goddess who embodies the raw, untamed forces of life and death, a figure of both terror and awe. Her presence is a reminder that the world is not just a place of light, but also of darkness, a place where the forces of nature and the supernatural are always at play. In the Morrigan, the Celts saw the power of the feminine, the strength of the land, and the inevitability of fate. She is a goddess who will not be forgotten, her name echoing through the ages, a symbol of the enduring power of the natural world and the mysteries it holds. In the cold, rugged lands of the Norse, where the wind howled like a ravenous beast and the earth trembled beneath the weight of snow, there was a goddess whose beauty could stop hearts and whose power could bend the very fabric of fate. Freya, the golden-haired goddess of love and war, held a place in the hearts of the Vikings that was as complex as it was profound. But it was not just her beauty or her connection to love that made her revered, it was her mastery of siege, the ancient and mysterious magic that could change the course of destiny. Freya was not just a goddess, she was a force, a living embodiment of the power that pulsed beneath the surface of the world. Siege, the magic she wielded, was not like any other. It was a craft that intertwined the threads of fate, allowing those who mastered it to see into the future, to alter the present, and to weave their desires into the very fabric of reality. Freya was its greatest mistress, her knowledge of siege unparalleled, her power over it absolute. In Viking culture, magic was not a mere trick or illusion. It was a powerful and sacred force, a connection to the divine and the natural world that could bring both blessings and curses. Siege was the highest form of this magic, a practice that required not just skill, but a deep understanding of the forces that shaped the world. Freya's mastery of siege made her both feared and revered, a goddess who could bring victory in battle, love in times of loneliness, and prosperity in times of need. The practice of siege was deeply tied to the feminine, a power that was both nurturing and destructive. It was said that those who practiced siege could commune with the spirits, call upon the gods, and even bring the dead back to speak. But it was also a dangerous path, one that required the practitioner to walk between the worlds, to dance on the edge of the unknown. Freya, with her grace and strength, was the perfect embodiment of this power. She could bend the will of the gods and men alike, her magic a tool of both creation and destruction. Freya's influence was not limited to the world of the gods. Among the Vikings, she was a symbol of the power that women could hold, a reminder that the feminine was not weak or passive, but strong and active. In a society where battle and bloodshed were everyday realities, Freya's magic was a force that could protect, heal, and destroy. The women who followed her, who practiced siege in her name, were both respected and feared, their power a vital part of the community's survival. But Freya was not just a goddess of magic. She was also a goddess of love, of passion and desire. Her connection to siege was not separate from this, but intertwined with it. Love, like magic, was a force that could change the world, a power that could lift the heart or shatter it. Freya understood this better than anyone, her magic infused with the power of love and the deep, aching longing that comes with it. Her siege was not just a tool for manipulating fate, but a way of channeling the deepest desires of the heart, of bringing to life the dreams that lay hidden in the darkest corners of the soul. The Vikings, who lived in a world of harsh realities and brutal truths, found in Freya a goddess who embodied both the beauty and the terror of existence. She was the light that guided them through the darkness, the warmth that kept them alive in the cold. But she was also the storm that could tear their lives apart, the force that could bring them to their knees. Freya was not just a goddess to be worshipped, but a force to be reckoned with, a reminder that the world was not just a place of order and reason, but of chaos and magic. The power of female magic in Viking culture was not just a reflection of Freya's influence, but of the deep respect that the Vikings had for the forces of nature and the divine. Women, who were often the keepers of this magic, were seen as both protectors and warriors, their power a crucial part of the community's strength. Freya, as the goddess of siege, was the ultimate symbol of this power, a goddess who could bend the very fabric of the world to her will. But Freya's magic was not just about power, it was about balance. She understood that the world was not just a place of light, but of darkness as well. Her siege was a way of navigating this balance, of understanding the forces that shaped the world and finding a way to live within them. The Vikings, who lived in a world where life and death were often separated by a single breath, found in Freya a guide, a goddess who could help them navigate the complexities of existence. Freya's role in Norse mythology is a testament to the power of female magic, to the strength and resilience of the feminine. Her mastery of siege, her connection to love and war, made her a figure of incredible power and influence, a goddess who shaped the world in her image. The Vikings, who saw in her the embodiment of the forces that shaped their lives, worshipped her not just as a goddess, but as a force of nature, a power that could not be ignored or denied. In Freya, the Vikings found not just a goddess, but a symbol of the power that lay within them all, a reminder that magic was not just something that existed in the world, but something that lived within the heart. Her siege was a reflection of this, a practice that required not just skill, but a deep connection to the world and the forces that shaped it. Freya's magic was not just about control, but about understanding, about finding a way to live within the world without being consumed by it. Freya, with her golden hair and her fierce heart, remains one of the most powerful figures in Norse mythology. Her mastery of siege, her connection to love and war, made her a goddess who could change the world with a single glance. But more than that, she was a reminder of the power of the feminine, of the strength and resilience that lay within the heart of every woman, every person who dared to walk the path of magic. Freya's influence, her power, her magic, lives on, a testament to the enduring strength of the feminine in a world that is often harsh and unforgiving. In the dense, shadowy forests of Eastern Europe, where the trees seem to whisper secrets of old and the winds carry echoes of forgotten voices, there lives a figure who has haunted the dreams of children and adults alike for centuries. Her name is Baba Yaga, and she is a witch unlike any other. With her wild hair and sharp, piercing eyes, she dwells in a house that stands on chicken legs, a dwelling as strange and fearsome as she is. Baba Yaga is a figure of terror, but also one of wisdom, a being who embodies the paradoxes of life, fear and kindness, cruelty and guidance, death and life. Baba Yaga's house, perched on those spindly, creaking chicken legs, is more than just a home. It is a living thing, moving through the forest with a mind of its own, obeying the commands of its mistress. The sight of it alone is enough to send shivers down the spine of anyone who dares approach. The door, it is said, does not open for just anyone. It must be unlocked with the right words, a magical incantation known only to those who have been taught the old ways. Inside, the house is filled with strange and wondrous things, herbs and potions, bones and charms, all the tools of a witch who has lived 1,000 lifetimes. Baba Yaga herself is a terrifying sight to behold. Her nose, long and hooked, seems to smell out the truth of those who come before her. Her voice, raspy and deep, carries with it the weight of countless years. She is not just old, she is ancient, a creature who has seen the rise and fall of kingdoms, the birth and death of countless souls. Her presence is overwhelming, a force that commands respect and fear in equal measure. Yet, Baba Yaga is not merely a figure of terror. Beneath her frightening exterior lies a well of deep, ancient wisdom. She is the keeper of secrets, the holder of knowledge that few can comprehend. Those who come to her in search of answers must be prepared to pay a price, for Baba Yaga's wisdom is not given freely. She tests those who seek her counsel, setting them tasks that challenge not just their strength, but their heart, their courage, their very soul. To face Baba Yaga is to face oneself, to confront the darkness within and the fears that hide in the corners of the mind. Many tales are told of those who have ventured into the forest to find Baba Yaga, seeking her help or her knowledge. Some go with pure hearts, others with selfish intentions. The outcome of their encounters with the witch depends on their true nature, for Baba Yaga sees through the masks people wear. She knows what lies in the depths of the heart, and she rewards or punishes accordingly. Those who show courage, humility, and respect may find in Baba Yaga a guide, a teacher who imparts wisdom that can change the course of their lives. But those who come with deceit in their hearts, or who seek to take what is not freely given, face her wrath, a wrath that is swift, merciless, and terrifying. The lessons Baba Yaga imparts are not easy ones. They are lessons of life and death, of loss and gain, of the eternal balance that governs the world. She teaches that life is not always kind, that the path to wisdom is often paved with hardship and pain. But she also teaches that there is strength in facing one's fears and embracing the challenges that life throws in one's path. Baba Yaga's wisdom is not comforting, but it is true, and those who heed it often find themselves stronger, wiser, and more resilient for the trials they have faced. Her house on chicken legs, with its ever-turning presence, symbolizes the constant motion of life, the way things are never truly still. Just as the house moves through the forest, so too does life move through us, carrying us along with its tides, whether we are ready or not. Baba Yaga's home is a reminder that we must be ready to face whatever comes, that we must be adaptable, resilient, and strong in the face of life's challenges. But Baba Yaga is also a figure of great ambiguity. She is neither wholly good nor wholly evil. She exists in a gray area, a place where morality is fluid and where the line between right and wrong is often blurred. This is what makes her so terrifying and so fascinating. She cannot be easily categorized or understood, and this makes her both a powerful and a dangerous figure in Slavic folklore. To many, Baba Yaga represents the unknown, the wild, untamed aspects of life that cannot be controlled or predicted. She is the darkness that lies beyond the edge of the village, the wilderness that exists outside the boundaries of civilization. But she is also the wisdom that comes from facing that darkness, from stepping beyond the safety of the known world and into the wild places where few dare to tread. Baba Yaga is the ultimate test, the gatekeeper who decides who is worthy of her knowledge and who is not. In the end, Baba Yaga is a reflection of life itself, unpredictable, fearsome, but also filled with the potential for growth and transformation. She teaches that true wisdom comes not from avoiding fear, but from facing it head-on, from confronting the challenges that life throws in our path and emerging stronger on the other side. Baba Yaga is a reminder that even in the darkest, most terrifying places, there is light to be found, if one is brave enough to seek it. Baba Yaga, with her house on chicken legs and her sharp, knowing eyes, will continue to haunt the dreams of those who hear her stories. She is a figure of fear, yes, but also of respect, a symbol of the ancient wisdom that lies hidden in the wild places of the world. In her, we see the power of the feminine, the strength of the wild, and the enduring truth that life, in all its terror and beauty, is a journey worth taking. In the small, harsh village of Salem, Massachusetts, a storm was brewing that would shake the very foundations of colonial America. It began with whispers of witchcraft, fear spreading through the tight-knit community like wildfire. At the heart of this turmoil was a figure whose story would become a chilling chapter in American history, Tituba. Her name has become synonymous with the Salem witch trials, but the reality of her life and the myths that grew around it tell a story as complex and haunting as the trials themselves. Tituba was an enslaved woman of African and Native American descent, and she lived on the fringes of the Puritan society that surrounded her. Her life was already marked by hardship and exclusion, but in 1692, her world would become the epicenter of a frenzy that would condemn many innocent lives. The trials began with a group of young girls in Salem Village who claimed to be possessed by witches. Tituba was one of the first to be accused, not by her own choice, but by the desperation of a community gripped by fear and hysteria. The accusations against Tituba were as terrifying as they were baseless. She was accused of consorting with the devil, of performing dark rituals and witchcraft. Her position as an outsider made her a convenient scapegoat, and her own fear and confusion only fueled the flames of suspicion. Under the pressure of harsh interrogations, Tituba confessed to witchcraft, a confession that was likely a result of the unbearable torment she faced rather than any real evidence of guilt. Her confession, filled with vivid and fantastical details of satanic rituals and dark pacts, only served to escalate the frenzy, drawing more and more people into the web of accusations. Tituba's confession was a turning point in the Salem witch trials. It helped to stoke the fears of the community, leading to a wave of accusations that would eventually claim the lives of 20 people and lead to the imprisonment of many more. But Tituba's story did not end with her confession. Instead, her name would become etched into the annals of history as a symbol of the terror and injustice of the Salem witch trials. Her tale has been told and retold, each version adding new layers of myth and speculation to the original truth. In the years following the trials, Tituba's story took on a life of its own. She was depicted in various ways, sometimes as a malevolent witch, sometimes as a victim of circumstance. Her real-life experiences were obscured by the sensationalism that surrounded the trials. The myths that grew around her were fueled by fear and superstition, painting her as a figure of dark power and malevolence. These stories contributed to a broader narrative about witchcraft in America, shaping the way people thought about witches and witchcraft for centuries to come. Tituba's influence on American history is profound, though tragic. Her story reflects the deep-seated fears and prejudices of her time, but it also serves as a reminder of the dangers of scapegoating and mass hysteria. The trials revealed how easily fear can consume a community, turning neighbors into accusers and leading to the most horrendous acts against those deemed different or suspect. Tituba's story, with its blend of real suffering and mythologized horror, stands as a stark reminder of the consequences of unchecked fear and prejudice. In the aftermath of the trials, Tituba's fate remained shrouded in mystery. She was imprisoned for over a year before being released, but little is known about her life afterward. The trials had left an indelible mark on her life and on the lives of those around her. Her story, a mixture of truth and myth, continues to captivate and horrify, a haunting echo of a time when fear and ignorance led to the darkest depths of human cruelty. Tituba's legacy is one of both tragedy and resilience. Her name has become a symbol of the suffering endured by those accused of witchcraft, and her story serves as a powerful reminder of the need for justice and understanding in the face of fear and suspicion. The myths that grew around her only add to the complexity of her story, making her a figure who embodies the contradictions and conflicts of her time. In the end, Tituba's story is a heart-wrenching testament to the power of fear and the impact of historical events on individual lives. Her experience reflects the broader themes of innocence and guilt, justice and injustice that define the Salem witch trials and the history of witchcraft in America. Her story, both real and mythologized, remains a powerful and moving reminder of the human cost of hysteria and the enduring struggle for truth and understanding. In the dimly lit streets of 17th-century Paris, where whispers of scandal and intrigue wove through the cobblestone alleys, one name stood out amidst the clamor: Catherine Monvoisin, known to history as La Voisin. Her life was a tangled web of secrets, power, and death, entwined with the dark arts of witchcraft and poison. As the central figure in the French affair of the poisons, La Voisin's story is as chilling as it is tragic, marked by a blend of forbidden knowledge and treacherous politics. La Voisin, a woman of mysterious origins, operated at the fringes of Parisian society. Her home was a place where the air was thick with the scent of herbs and strange potions, where the dark rituals of witchcraft were practiced behind closed doors. She was known for her skills in crafting poisons and for her consultations with those seeking to alter their fate through supernatural means. To her clients, she was a source of both hope and dread, offering remedies and curses with an equally potent touch. The French affair of the poisons, a scandal that erupted in the late 17th century, brought La Voisin into the harsh glare of public scrutiny. The affair was a web of intrigue involving high society, including members of the royal court, who were implicated in a vast network of poisoning and witchcraft. La Voisin was at the heart of this storm, accused of providing poisons that led to the deaths of numerous victims. Her role in the affair was as complex as it was sinister, revealing a world where the lines between magic and murder were often blurred. La Voisin's involvement in the affair was not merely that of a poisoner; she was a pivotal figure in a network that spanned the highest echelons of society. Her knowledge of poisons, combined with her supposed connections to the occult, made her a key player in the dark underbelly of French politics. It was said that she offered her services to those who sought to remove rivals or enemies from their path, using her knowledge of poison and her alleged magical powers to manipulate outcomes. The trial and subsequent execution of La Voisin were dramatic events that captivated the public. She was accused of conducting rituals to summon demons and to procure favors from dark forces, all while peddling poisons to those with the means to pay. The details of her trial revealed a life steeped in secrecy and fear. La Voisin was portrayed as a witch who had betrayed the trust of society, using her powers for malevolent purposes. Her confessions, extracted under the harshest conditions, painted a picture of a woman who had dabbled in the darkest of arts, entangled in a web of political and personal vengeance. The impact of La Voisin's life and crimes extended far beyond her own fate. Her story highlighted the intense fear and suspicion surrounding witchcraft in 17th century France, a period when accusations of witchcraft could be used to settle personal scores or to shift political power. La Voisin became a symbol of the dangers of combining occult practices with political ambition, and her life was a stark reminder of the paranoia that could grip a society when trust was in short supply. Her involvement in the affair also exposed the fragile nature of power and the lengths to which people would go to maintain or advance their status. La Voisin's clients included people from all walks of life, from the affluent to the desperate, each seeking her services for reasons ranging from the mundane to the sinister. The fact that such a woman could exert such influence reveals the depth of fear and the desperation that existed in a society rife with intrigue and corruption. The life of Catherine La Voisin is a testament to the dark side of human nature, a tale of a woman who lived at the intersection of witchcraft, poison, and politics. Her story is filled with the kind of drama and horror that captures the imagination and leaves a lasting impression. La Voisin's legacy is one of both fear and fascination, a reminder of the lengths to which people will go when driven by power, fear, and a desire for control. Her life, marked by both her mastery of poisons and her entanglement in the occult, remains a haunting chapter in the history of witchcraft and political intrigue. In the rugged landscapes of Cornwall, where the wind howls through ancient moorlands and the sea crashes against craggy cliffs, there was once a woman whose name became intertwined with the mystical and the mysterious, Joan Witt. Known in local lore as the Fighting Fairy Woman of Bodmin, her story is a blend of defiance and sorrow, a tale of a healer who was accused of witchcraft and whose legacy continues to stir the hearts of those who hear it. Joan Witt was a healer, renowned in her village for her knowledge of herbs and traditional remedies. Her touch was said to be gentle yet firm, her knowledge vast and deep. To the people of Bodmin, she was a beacon of hope in times of illness and despair. Her healing abilities were respected and sought after, but this respect came at a cost. In an age when fear of the unknown could turn neighbor against neighbor, Joan's skills and the whispers about her connection to the supernatural made her a target. The people of Cornwall, like many others in the 17th century, were deeply superstitious. The boundaries between the natural and the supernatural were blurred, and accusations of witchcraft were often used to explain away the inexplicable. Joan, with her deep knowledge of herbal medicine and her ability to ease suffering, became a prime target for suspicion. The very qualities that had made her a respected healer also made her vulnerable. As rumors of her witchcraft spread, so did fear and suspicion. The local authorities, eager to appease a populace growing increasingly anxious and accusatory, took action. Joan Witt was accused of witchcraft, a charge that carried severe consequences. The charges against her were as much a reflection of the societal anxieties of the time as they were of her personal situation. The trials against Joan were brutal, a grim spectacle of a community torn between fear and the quest for justice. She was accused of using her knowledge for dark purposes, of harnessing powers beyond the natural realm. The very herbs she had used to heal were now twisted into symbols of malevolence. Her fate was sealed by the same fear that had once driven people to seek her help. Despite the horror of her trial, Joan's spirit remained unbroken. Her resistance and defiance in the face of such grave accusations only added to her legend. She was a woman of strength, fighting not just for her own life, but for the right to be recognized for the good she had done. Her story became a symbol of the struggle between the known and the unknown, the healer and the accused, the innocent and the condemned. Joan's enduring legacy is one of both sorrow and respect. In local folklore, she is remembered not merely as a victim of witchcraft accusations, but as a figure of resistance and courage. Her story has become a part of Cornish legend, a tale of a woman who stood against the tide of fear and suspicion. The image of Joan Witt, fighting against the dark forces of misunderstanding and fear, resonates deeply in the hearts of those who hear her story. Her name lives on in the folklore of Cornwall, where she is remembered as a figure who bridged the gap between the mundane and the mystical. Joan Witt's legacy is a powerful reminder of the dangers of ignorance and fear, but it is also a testament to the strength of the human spirit. Her story is one of defiance in the face of adversity, a beacon of hope and resilience in a world where the line between the natural and the supernatural is often perilously thin. In the end, Joan Witch's story is a poignant reflection of the struggles faced by those who, like her, were caught between the harsh judgments of society and their own undeniable truths. Her legacy is a powerful symbol of the strength and courage it takes to stand firm against the tide of fear and misunderstanding, a reminder of the enduring power of hope and defiance in the face of the darkest trials. In the vibrant, chaotic streets of 19th-century New Orleans, a name rose above the rest, whispered with reverence and awe: Marie Laveau, the Voodoo Queen. Her presence was as commanding as the rhythms of the city itself, her influence as profound as the mysteries of the magic she practiced. Marie Laveau's life was a tapestry woven with threads of African, Catholic, and indigenous magic, creating a rich and complex legacy that would shape the landscape of voodoo in the United States. Marie Laveau was born into a world where her heritage was a blend of cultures and beliefs. The daughter of an African slave and a free Creole, she grew up amidst a mix of African traditions, Catholicism, and local folk practices. This cultural mélange provided the foundation for her extraordinary influence. Marie learned early on the power of these combined traditions, understanding how to blend them into a practice that resonated deeply with the people of New Orleans. Her reputation as a voodoo priestess grew quickly. Marie was known for her profound knowledge of the mystical and the arcane, her ability to heal, and her guidance in matters of love and fortune. People from all walks of life came to her, seeking her wisdom and help. Her house became a sanctuary where rituals and prayers were performed with a depth of feeling and authenticity that drew people in and left them transformed. Marie's voodoo was not a singular practice but a vibrant tapestry of different influences. She skillfully combined elements of African spiritual traditions, which spoke of powerful spirits and ancestral reverence, with Catholic symbolism, which provided a familiar framework for many of her clients. This blend created a unique and accessible form of voodoo that spoke to both the deeply religious and the spiritually curious. Her rituals were rich with the sounds of drums and chants, infused with the reverence for spirits and saints that bridged different worlds. Marie Laveau's influence extended beyond her spiritual practices. She used her knowledge and position to effect real change in her community. Her guidance and leadership were instrumental in providing support and protection to the marginalized and disenfranchised. Her home was not just a place for spiritual consultation but a refuge for those in need. She was known to help with practical matters as well, using her influence to assist the poor and fight for their rights. Her impact was so profound that legends began to swirl around her. Stories of her powers and her deeds became larger than life, creating a mystique that only added to her stature. Marie was said to have the ability to shape fate itself, her presence a sign of both protection and fear. The power of her name became a symbol of both respect and trepidation, embodying the complex intersections of power, magic, and belief. Marie Laveau's death did not diminish her influence, instead, it cemented her legacy. The stories of her life and work continue to inspire and intrigue, creating a lasting mythos that blended reality with legend. Her name became synonymous with the strength and resilience of New Orleans, a reminder of the power of blending different traditions into a cohesive and powerful practice. In the rich cultural tapestry of New Orleans, Marie Laveau remains a towering figure. Her life was a testament to the ability of one person to bridge different worlds and make a profound impact on their community. The Voodoo Queen's legacy is not just about the magical practices she espoused, but also about her role as a healer, leader, and symbol of cultural synthesis. Marie Laveau's story is one of enduring influence, a reminder of the deep connections between belief, community, and the power of individual spirit. In the shadowy corners of medieval Europe, where superstition and fear cast long, dark shadows, grimoires, mysterious books of magic held a power that could ignite both fascination and dread. These ancient texts were more than just books, they were gateways to the unknown, repositories of secrets that promised to reveal the hidden forces shaping the world. Each page was a potential door to forbidden knowledge, and for those who dared to turn them, they were a source of both wonder and peril. Grimoires were central to the practice of witchcraft in medieval Europe. They contained spells, invocations, and rituals that were believed to tap into otherworldly forces. These books were often written in a mix of Latin, ancient languages, and cryptic symbols that only the initiated could hope to understand. The spells and rituals described within were said to allow the practitioner to command spirits, heal the sick, or even summon supernatural entities. For those seeking to wield such power, these grimoires were considered priceless treasures. The allure of grimoires lay in their promise to connect with forces beyond human comprehension. They were often associated with the practice of witchcraft, a term that was both feared and misunderstood. The very act of possessing or using a grimoire could lead to accusations of witchcraft, bringing with it the risk of persecution and death. Yet, the pull of the magical knowledge contained within these books was so strong that many were willing to face such dangers. The grimoires of medieval Europe were not just tools of magic, but also vessels of the era's complex relationship with the supernatural. These books were often produced by scholars and occultists who combined elements of ancient pagan traditions with emerging Christian beliefs. As such, they offer a unique glimpse into how people of the time sought to reconcile their faith with their fascination with magic. One of the most infamous grimoires from this period was the Key of Solomon, a book attributed to King Solomon, whose wisdom was legendary. This grimoire promised to grant its reader dominion over the spiritual world, with instructions on how to summon and control demons. Its pages were filled with detailed diagrams and rituals meant to harness the powers of the supernatural. To those who believed in its efficacy, the Key of Solomon was a tool of immense power and a source of both wonder and fear. Another significant text was the Malleus Maleficarum, or the Hammer of Witches, which was more of an inquisitorial manual than a magical book. While not a grimoire in the traditional sense, it played a crucial role in shaping the perception of witchcraft in Europe. It provided the framework for identifying and prosecuting witches, thus impacting how grimoires and the practice of witchcraft were viewed by society. The influence of grimoires extended far beyond their immediate historical context. As centuries passed, their secrets continued to captivate those with an interest in the occult. The knowledge contained within these ancient texts was absorbed into modern witchcraft practices, shaping how contemporary practitioners approach magic. Today, the allure of grimoires persists, with many modern witches and occultists looking back to these ancient texts for inspiration and guidance. The legacy of grimoires is a reminder of the enduring human quest for understanding and control over the forces that shape our world. They represent a time when the boundaries between the natural and supernatural were fluid, and the search for knowledge often came at great personal risk. Their pages, filled with cryptic symbols and powerful incantations, continue to evoke a sense of mystery and fascination, a testament to the profound impact they have had on the practice of witchcraft both in the past and in the present. In the misty hills of Pendle Forest, where the fog curls around the ancient stones and the wind whispers through the gnarled trees, a dark chapter of English history unfolded. It was the early 17th century, and the air was thick with fear and suspicion. The Pendle Witch Trials, one of the most infamous witchcraft trials in England, would cast a long shadow over the lives of those accused and reshape the very laws that governed the treatment of witches. The story begins with a haunting blend of desperation and accusation. In 1612, a group of 12 people from the Pendle area were arrested on charges of witchcraft. These were not the powerful or influential figures one might expect to be targeted, but rather ordinary individuals, including elderly women and impoverished families, whose lives were torn apart by the tide of superstition and fear. The accusations against them were as varied as they were horrific, from causing illness and death to bewitching livestock. The heart of the trials was an elderly woman named Elizabeth Southerns, known as Old Dim Dyke, who, along with her family and associates, was accused of practicing malevolent witchcraft. Her granddaughter, Alison Device, was one of the first to be arrested, sparking a chain reaction of accusations and trials. The local authorities, eager to stamp out what they perceived as a growing threat, launched an investigation that would expose the accused to a brutal and unforgiving legal process. The trials were a spectacle of terror and injustice. The accused were subjected to intense interrogations, often under duress or torture, leading to confessions that were likely false but served to stoke the flames of paranoia. The testimonies against them were a mix of personal grudges, superstitious beliefs, and the chilling testimony of witnesses who claimed to have seen the accused performing dark rituals or making pacts with the devil. The trial of the Pendle witches was marked by its sheer brutality. The accused were paraded before the court in chains, their fate sealed by the rampant fear of witchcraft that had gripped the nation. The evidence presented was flimsy at best, often relying on dubious testimony and forced confessions. Despite this, the court was determined to make an example of them, reflecting the broader societal panic over witchcraft that had swept through England and much of Europe. In the end, 10 of the 12 accused were found guilty and executed, a stark reminder of the harsh realities faced by those accused of witchcraft. The trials not only resulted in the deaths of innocent people but also set a precedent for how witchcraft accusations would be handled in the future. The Pendle trials highlighted the dangers of a legal system fueled by fear and superstition, leading to a growing awareness of the need for legal reforms and more rigorous standards of evidence. The Pendle witch trials left a deep scar on the community and a dark legacy in the annals of English history. They are remembered today not just as a tragic episode of mass hysteria, but as a cautionary tale about the power of fear to override reason and justice. The trials serve as a poignant reminder of the suffering endured by those accused and the broader societal changes that followed in their wake. In the remote, mist-shrouded valleys of northern Italy, a curious and dramatic tale unfolds, a story of a hidden conflict waged not in the physical world but in the shadowy realms of the spirit. This is the tale of the Benandanti, a group whose very name means good walkers, and whose mission was to protect their land and people from dark forces that threatened their crops and well-being. The Benandanti were believed to be ordinary people by day, but at night, they took on a different role. In their dreams or in a trance-like state, they journeyed to a spirit world where they fought against malevolent witches who sought to harm the crops and the community. This nightly battle was not one of violence but of spiritual contest, where the Benandanti defended the harvest by using their own special powers to repel the dark forces. Imagine a group of men and women, perhaps like the quiet farmers of the Friuli region, who, while they seemed simple and unassuming in their everyday lives, carried within them a remarkable duty. By night, they were transformed into protectors of their community, engaged in a sacred struggle that was both mysterious and vital. This dual life was a testament to their deep connection to their land and to the ancient beliefs that intertwined with their daily existence. Their stories, passed down through generations, painted a picture of these battles as intense and crucial. The Benandanti described their nocturnal fights with the witches as fierce contests of will and spirit. They would gather together, wielding their unique abilities to counter the witches' attempts to blight their crops and spread disease. Their victories in these nighttime battles were seen as a direct influence on the success of the harvest, making their role one of both sacred duty and immense responsibility. Despite their crucial role, the Benandanti were often misunderstood by those outside their group. To outsiders, their nightly escapades seemed strange and unsettling, leading to suspicion and fear. They were sometimes accused of witchcraft themselves, a tragic irony given that they were, in fact, fighting against it. This misunderstanding was compounded by the turbulent times in which they lived, where accusations of witchcraft were often rooted in fear and ignorance. The Benandanti's belief in their nocturnal battles reveals a deep and poignant connection to the natural world. Their struggle was not just a personal fight, but a communal effort to ensure the well-being of their entire community. They stood as a bridge between the visible world and the invisible, battling unseen forces to protect the tangible, essential elements of their lives, their crops, their families, their future. The story of the Benandanti is a haunting reminder of how deeply people can become entwined with the cycles of nature and the supernatural. It reflects a time when the boundary between reality and the spirit world was thin, and where the daily struggles of life were intertwined with a deeper, mystical purpose. Their tale speaks to the heart of human courage and dedication, embodying a profound commitment to their land and people, even when faced with incomprehensible dangers. In the heart of Africa, where ancient traditions weave seamlessly with modern beliefs, the story of witchcraft is a rich and complex tapestry. It is a tale of wisdom and fear, of revered healers and those cast out as threats. The history of witchcraft in Africa is as diverse as the continent itself, marked by a blend of deep-rooted customs and evolving attitudes that reflect the intricate fabric of African cultures. In many African societies, traditional healers have long held a place of respect and reverence. These healers, often considered to possess special knowledge and powers, use their understanding of herbs, rituals, and spiritual practices to diagnose and cure illnesses. Among the Akan people of Ghana, for example, traditional healers are seen as mediators between the physical and spiritual worlds. They are entrusted with knowledge passed down through generations, and their practices are deeply integrated into community life. Similarly, in Yoruba culture from Nigeria, the role of the healer or priest is crucial. Yoruba spirituality encompasses a rich pantheon of deities and ancestral spirits, and the practitioners, known as Babalawos for men and Ayalawos for women, serve as guides in navigating this spiritual realm. Their expertise in divination and ritual is respected, and they play a key role in maintaining harmony within the community. Yet, alongside this respect for traditional practices, there exists a darker side to the story. As Africa has modernized and globalized, the perception of witchcraft has shifted. In some regions, fear and suspicion have grown, leading to tragic consequences. Accusations of witchcraft can lead to devastating outcomes, especially in times of social or economic stress. In such instances, the figure of the witch becomes a scapegoat for unexplained misfortunes, from illness to crop failures. In the Zulu traditions of South Africa, the role of witchcraft is similarly multifaceted. Historically, Zulu communities revered healers who were believed to have spiritual power and wisdom. However, there is also a fear of witches, those who are thought to use their powers malevolently. This fear can result in accusations and social ostracism, reflecting the broader struggle between tradition and modernity. The stories from these cultures reveal a profound connection to the supernatural and a deep respect for those who navigate its mysteries. Yet they also highlight a painful reality: the same beliefs that once nurtured and healed can become sources of fear and violence. This duality is a testament to the power of belief and the impact it can have on individuals and communities. In some cases, the fear of witchcraft has led to witch hunts and trials, reminiscent of those in other parts of the world. Women, particularly the elderly and those living on the fringes of society, are often the targets of such accusations. These individuals may be accused of causing harm or misfortune, and their lives can be upended by these allegations. The fear of witchcraft thus becomes a tool for social control, reflecting deeper anxieties about change and instability. Yet, amidst these stories of fear and tragedy, there are also tales of resilience and resistance. Many African communities continue to honor their traditional healers and spiritual leaders, even as they navigate the challenges of modernity. These practitioners maintain their role as custodians of ancient knowledge, bridging the gap between past and present. The history of witchcraft in Africa is a complex and emotional journey through respect, fear, and transformation. It is a narrative woven with threads of ancient wisdom and modern struggles, reflecting the diverse experiences of a continent rich in tradition and change. Through the lens of these stories, we see both the enduring power of belief and the human cost of fear. In the shadowed corridors of history, where fear and suspicion intertwined with religious fervor, the Inquisition's witch hunts stand as one of the darkest chapters. The Catholic Church, an institution once seen as a beacon of spiritual guidance, became a force of persecution, turning its gaze upon those it deemed as witches. This grim era was not just a time of accusation and punishment, but also a period that deeply scarred the fabric of European society. Imagine living in a world where the mere whisper of a curse or the sight of an old woman's herbal remedy could spell disaster. In the 15th and 16th centuries, Europe was rife with anxiety and turmoil. The Catholic Church, seeking to purge what it considered heresy and evil, directed its scrutiny towards those suspected of witchcraft. The fear of witches became a powerful tool, shaping laws, beliefs, and lives in ways that would leave scars for generations. The Church's efforts to combat witchcraft were driven by a combination of genuine fear and a desire to consolidate power. The Inquisition was established to root out heresy, and witchcraft was deemed a particularly insidious form of it. Those accused were often subjected to horrific interrogations, where confessions were extracted through fear and torture. The specter of the Inquisition loomed large over communities, casting a long, dark shadow that turned neighbor against neighbor. Consider the plight of those accused. Many were elderly women, often isolated or marginalized, whose knowledge of herbs and traditional remedies made them targets. The Church's insistence on the existence of a grand conspiracy of witches, working in league with the devil, fueled a relentless hunt. The horror of being accused, the terror of interrogation, and the dread of potential execution gripped entire communities. The stakes were high, with the threat of death or severe punishment hanging over the heads of those deemed guilty. The impact of these witch hunts extended far beyond the immediate suffering of the accused. Fear of witches permeated all levels of society, shaping laws and creating a pervasive sense of paranoia. Local magistrates, eager to show their alignment with the Church, were often quick to accuse and convict, leading to widespread miscarriages of justice. Communities were torn apart as suspicion and fear overshadowed trust and solidarity. The witch hunts also led to a significant shift in how society viewed witchcraft. What was once a part of local traditions and practices became demonized and feared. The belief in witches, once tied to local folklore and superstitions, was transformed into a matter of grave religious concern. The Church's teachings, combined with the dramatic stories of witch trials, reshaped cultural perceptions and entrenched the idea that witchcraft was a serious and dangerous threat. As the Inquisition spread, so did the methods of persecution. The infamous Malleus Maleficarum, a book written to guide the Church in identifying and prosecuting witches, was used to justify and perpetuate the witch hunts. This guide outlined supposed signs of witchcraft and methods for interrogation, further entrenching the cycle of fear and persecution. The book became a tool of terror, influencing how witchcraft was perceived and prosecuted across Europe. The legacy of the Inquisition's witch hunts is a haunting reminder of the destructive power of fear and the ways in which it can be manipulated to control and oppress. The terror that gripped Europe during this time reshaped societies, embedding a deep-seated fear of witchcraft that would influence attitudes and practices for centuries to come. The echoes of this era can still be felt in modern discussions about witchcraft and the balance between faith, fear, and justice. The Inquisition's witch hunts were more than just a series of trials and executions. They were a profound societal upheaval that left a lasting impact. They reveal the depths of human fear and the lengths to which people will go to confront what they do not understand. The personal stories of those caught in this web of terror, the families torn apart, and the lives lost in the name of religious zeal serve as a powerful reminder of the cost of fear and the importance of compassion and understanding. In the heart of Asia, where vibrant cultures intersect and ancient traditions thrive, witchcraft takes on forms that are as diverse as the landscapes themselves. From the dense jungles of the Philippines to the bustling streets of China and the serene temples of Japan, the concept of witchcraft weaves a complex tapestry of sorcery, healing, and spirituality. Here, witches, shamans, and spiritual figures navigate a world where the mystical and the mundane often blend seamlessly. In the Philippines, the belief in witches and sorcery is deeply rooted in the cultural fabric. In rural areas, tales of mangkukulam, sorcerers who use magic for malevolent purposes, are common. These individuals are feared for their supposed ability to cast spells that can cause illness or misfortune. Yet, there are also albularios, traditional healers who harness ancient knowledge of herbs and rituals to cure ailments. They are respected figures, bridging the gap between the spiritual and physical worlds. Their practices are steeped in tradition, and their role in the community is vital, offering a glimmer of hope in the face of uncertainty. Traveling to China, we find a rich tapestry of magical traditions. Here, witchcraft is often intertwined with Taoism and folklore. Ancient Chinese texts describe various forms of magic, from summoning spirits to casting protective charms. In traditional Chinese medicine, practitioners might use spiritual methods alongside physical treatments to heal. The concept of the Wu, a shaman or priest who performs rituals to communicate with spirits and ancestors, is central to these practices. The Wu's role is both revered and feared, as they are seen as mediators between the human world and the supernatural. In Japan, the world of witchcraft and spirituality is no less intricate. The country's rich mythology includes a host of supernatural beings and magical practices. The onmyoji, practitioners of Japanese esoteric cosmology, were once believed to wield significant magical power. They performed rituals to ward off evil spirits and ensure prosperity. The Yamanba, a mythical mountain witch, represents a figure of mystery and power. Though often portrayed as frightening, the Yamanba also embodies the wisdom of nature and the untamed forces of the world. These figures highlight the complex relationship between fear and reverence in Japanese spiritual traditions. Across these diverse cultures, there is a clear distinction between witches, shamans, and other spiritual figures. Witches in many Asian cultures are often associated with malevolence or dark magic, while shamans or healers are viewed with respect and seen as bearers of ancient wisdom. Shamans, unlike witches, are believed to communicate with spirits for the benefit of the community, using their knowledge to heal and protect. The distinction is significant, as it reflects broader beliefs about the role of magic and the intentions behind it. The stories from these regions reveal a world where the supernatural is deeply interwoven with everyday life. In the Philippines, fear of malevolent sorcerers is counterbalanced by the hope and healing offered by traditional healers. In China, the Wu navigate a world of spirits and charms, offering protection and guidance. In Japan, figures like the onmyoji and Yamanba illustrate the powerful blend of mythology and spiritual practice. These traditions highlight a profound truth: the human need for understanding and connection in the face of the unknown. The rituals, beliefs, and figures in these cultures offer a glimpse into how societies make sense of the world around them and seek to influence it through spiritual means. They remind us of the deep-seated desire to control fate and heal the soul, even as we grapple with the mysteries of existence. In the rich tapestry of Asian witchcraft and spirituality, every culture offers its own unique perspective on the mystical forces that shape our lives. Through these stories, we see how ancient practices continue to resonate in a modern world, reflecting the enduring power of belief and the universal quest for understanding. In the flicker of a movie screen or the pages of a book, witches have transformed from ancient figures of fear and reverence into icons of modern myth. Their portrayals in contemporary literature, film, and television stir emotions and ignite imaginations, weaving a complex tapestry that connects the old with the new. The magic of these modern depictions often draws upon the shadows and brilliance of ancient myths and historical figures, casting a spell over audiences worldwide. Think of the enigmatic Hermione Granger from the Harry Potter series. With her intelligence and bravery, she embodies a modern vision of witchcraft, one that combines the allure of magic with the triumph of personal strength. Hermione's world is rich with spells and potions, yet her character is grounded in real struggles and triumphs. Her story reflects a shift from the fearsome witches of old to figures who inspire admiration and empathy. Contrast this with the eerie and unsettling portrayal of witches in movies like The Witch and Hereditary. Here, witches are not just magical beings, but symbols of deep-seated fears and the unknown. These films tap into the ancient fears surrounding witchcraft, using atmospheric tension and psychological horror to evoke a chilling sense of dread. In these stories, the witch is both a figure of terror and a catalyst for exploring darker aspects of the human psyche. Television shows like American Horror Story and Charmed offer another perspective, blending traditional witchcraft with contemporary drama. Characters such as the witches in American Horror Story confront themes of power, betrayal, and survival. They bring historical fears into modern settings, challenging viewers to reconsider their understanding of witchcraft. On the other hand, Charmed presents a more playful and heroic view, where witches use their powers to fight evil and protect the innocent. This portrayal underscores the idea that magic can be a force for good, offering hope and heroism. These modern portrayals are not created in a vacuum, they are deeply influenced by ancient myths and historical figures. The character of Morgan Le Fay, a powerful and often misunderstood figure from Arthurian legend, casts a long shadow over modern witch portrayals. Her transformation from a healer to a sorceress reflects a broader shift in how witches are viewed, once revered and feared, now often depicted as complex and multifaceted characters. Similarly, the figure of Hecate, with her connections to the moon and the underworld, continues to inspire modern interpretations of witchcraft. She symbolizes the intersection of power and mystery, influencing how witches are portrayed as both magical and formidable. The real-life stories of figures like Marie Laveau, the Voodoo Queen of New Orleans, also leave their mark on contemporary depictions. Her legacy of blending African, Catholic, and indigenous practices resonates in characters who navigate a world where various magical traditions intersect. These modern witches, like their historical counterparts, often embody a fusion of cultures and beliefs, reflecting the complex reality of their origins. Yet, amidst all the fantasy and horror, there is a yearning to understand the deeper truths behind these portrayals. Modern media often explores the theme of witchcraft as a way of grappling with societal issues, empowerment, identity, and the struggle against oppression. The witch, once a symbol of fear and persecution, is increasingly depicted as a figure of resilience and transformation. This shift reflects a broader cultural movement towards embracing and understanding the complexities of magic and the individuals who practice it. In the modern myth, witches are both a reflection of ancient fears and a canvas for new narratives. They are depicted as powerful yet vulnerable, capable of great good and terrible harm. This duality captures the imagination and speaks to a deep-seated fascination with the mystical and the unknown. The way witches are portrayed today is a testament to the enduring power of their ancient stories. They continue to captivate and inspire, bridging the gap between myth and reality. Each portrayal, whether it's a heroic witch in a beloved series or a sinister figure in a horror film, adds a new layer to the rich history of witchcraft. Through these stories, we not only revisit the past, but also explore our own fears, hopes, and dreams.